The very fact that we the three, Dr. Adhikari, Dr. Upadhyay from Nepal and myself from India, have come together to discuss on such an issue is the proof of the fact that the dominant mode of thinking, dominant mode of understanding the world is being challenged in a big way. Because of the data creation, huge amount of information is being created and transferred across the globe because of communication technologies. Now we are knowing about rest of the world more and more, and this knowing is not one way. This is happening in many ways, from many to one, from one to one, from many to many, and that way the technology has undermined, or rather shown the door to this process of mass communication. That mass communication was very, very dominant, was very, very manipulative, and the power structures were able to control it. And that is why the people who were subjugated, the people who were colonized, were not being able to say what they wanted to and what they needed to. But the social media, internet, mobile, all this has made it possible for millions and millions of people to articulate what is right for them. Now they will not allow a very few set of people, either within their country, be it Nepal, be it India, or globally in America and European countries and others, to decide about them, because they know the best about them thanks to the new technologies. It is in this context that we are able to benefit from what we were thousands of years ago, and how the colonizers, European colonizers, in modern times the American colonizers, and in between, during the Middle Ages, the Islamic colonizers, they all almost decimated our knowledge. 32 universities were decimated, destroyed, burnt in India only. Dr. Adhikari can add how many university and education institutions were burnt or destroyed in Nepal. That shows that the Semitic tradition means that people who came from Europe and came from America, or from West Asia, that is the Arab world, they were against truth, they were against facts, they were against the knowledge that gave opportunity to one and all. So at the one hand, we had the Semitic knowledge system that said only we can survive, either we survive or you survive. This was about us versus they, me versus you. We were the Sanatan tradition, the Bharatvarsa tradition was about all, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole globe was like a village. Only in the last century, European thinking was able to say global or global village. But we believed in it, we acted on it, and we also theorized it almost 5,000 years ago. Today's situation demands that the gap between what the large number of people, the millions and millions of people, think about themselves, what is their perspectives about themselves, and what the rulers of the day think about them. So today there is a clash between the baskets of perspectives, many perspectives that are emanating from different groups of people in Asia, particularly India and Nepal on the one hand, and the different dominant and ruling ideologies that have their roots either in the Western Asia, for example Saudi Arabia or Jerusalem or Europe or America. This clash between the two world views is something that not only we need to decode, but we also need to understand it from our own perspective. One thing which is very clear during the last 2,000 years, this perspective that emanated in Jerusalem, which is about Christianity, which is about Islam, and which is also about communism, has killed in the name of making the world better. In the name of making the world better, they have killed around 1,000 million people. And out of those 1,000 million people, Dr. Adhikari, you will be sad to know that we were the real place of Holocaust. 100 million people were killed only in the Bharat wars of today, that is India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we were the real place of Holocaust. Imagine, 10 crore people being killed are not being acknowledged. And only 50 lakh Jews were killed in Second World War, and we call it Holocaust. That is the gap we need to understand, decode and fill it. And that will happen when we start looking at data-led narratives. We theorize based on data, rather than we first decide something. We first make a theory and then collect data accordingly. They, Europeans, Americans, Islamists, they were about narrative-led data. They decided that we were bad. We were to be ruled by others, and they came to rule us. The reality was different. The reality was different, as it's clear from data that this part of the globe was 33% of the global GDP for around 1,000 years. China and Bharatvarsha today put together were commanding more than 50% of GDP in the 11th century. If you come to Bharatvarsh, it was slightly less, maybe 25% or so. But when the British left us, it was hardly 1.5%. If you were so good, you were scientific, you were a civilizing force, you were so good, how come our national economy went down from 33% to 1.5%? And that wreaked havoc. Millions and millions of people died of hunger. Untouchability, for example, is not rooted in the Indian texts or Indian concepts or tradition. Untouchability is primarily given to us, forced on us by the Islamic invaders, first and later on fossilized, cemented by the European invaders. I would like Dr. Adhikari, and before that, Dr. Govind Upadhyay, to shed more light on that, if possible, from the Nepali perspective on this gap between theory and practice. When I say theory and practice, dominant theory and dominant practice.
यस भिडियोलाई लाइक कमेन्ट र सेयर गर्न नबिर्सिनुहोला। फेरि यस्तै रोचक भिडियोहरू हेर्नका लागि यस च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गरेर घन्टी बजाइदिनुहोला।